Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and horses, I have a big review for you guys tonight. That's right, I'm going to be pitting the newly released, highly anticipated Boss Bottled Absolu versus Boss Bottled Elixir. Stick around for this one. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Scent Review. So, at this point, you guys have probably all heard about the relatively new release, Boss Bottled Absolu. Well, I'm just getting around to doing a review on it now, and I'm excited for this one. Keep in mind, this is not a paid promotional video. There's no external influence on my opinions whatsoever. They are entirely my own. And so in this video, I'm going to be pitting Boss Bottled Absolu versus Boss Bottled Elixir. I'm going to make a side-by-side comparison, going over the note profile, the performance, the price, and finally, my recommendation to you awesome people. So yeah, Hugo Boss, honestly, not a brand that I pay much attention to. So, very recently, I've kind of revisited the brand, mostly because of this new release, Boss Bottled Absolu. I wanted to look into it. And it actually reminded me that my very first fragrance that I ever bought back in 2015 or something like that was Boss Bottled Man, the one that came in this bottle here. Yeah, that was my first ever real big boy cologne. But since then I kind of just forgot about Hugo Boss as a brand. I was never really a huge fan of their releases. But, lately I've decided to kind of give them a little bit more of a chance. Like I said, mostly because of this new release, Boss Bottled Absolu. So in the Boss Bottled line, we have actually very many. So a couple of the more recent releases, some really hyped releases are the Elixir, the Triumph Elixir, Absolu, and there was also one called Absolute that was released a couple of years ago. That is not the one I'm covering in this video. The one I'm covering in this video is obviously this one here, the one that at this point you guys have probably all heard of. So it's a cool bottle here. It looks very similar to the Elixir bottle. We start with black, brown at the top. As it starts going towards the bottom of the bottle, it turns to a nice golden honeyed hue. Really interesting bottle. The bottle shape itself is shaped like all the other Boss bottled members. And on the top here, we have a nice sharp black circle with Boss written in gold coloring in the middle of a golden cap. I've never really given much thought to these bottles, but I actually kind of like them. So let's get the most important part out of the way. Awesome atomizer, by the way. I'm not sure how the other atomizers compare to this one, but I gotta say, I like the look of the bottle, like the shape, and I like the atomizer. So what do I actually get as far as the scent profile? So in the opening, I get a lot of Davana and Vetiver. In the mid, I get some leather and patchouli. And in the dry down, I get some patchouli, myrrh, and vanilla. So right up top, I get a bitter, green, but very fruity, sweet Davana. It's going to give it fruity sweetness, but also a bitter herbal tone. Kind of interesting here. To include the note of Davana in a designer fragrance is quite interesting. And I get like a little bit of green, herbal, aromatic vetiver, just a touch in the background there. So it's a really interesting opening. Like when I first sprayed this, I was like, whoa. I was not expecting this from Hugo Boss at all. But after the opening, it starts becoming a little bit more, reminiscent of older members of this line. Although there is some really nice, really smooth leather in the mid, that is definitely a departure from the line. I think it's a really interesting, albeit weak-ish leather note that's existing in the mid. It is there though. And I think it's a really interesting addition to this note profile. And yeah, in the mid though, the most powerful note is going to be the patchouli. So the patchouli in this fragrance is very chocolatey, very sweet, a little bit earthy. It's not one of those more offensive styles of patchouli at all. This is a very digestible, agreeable type of patchouli. And in the dry down, even more of that chocolatey patchouli with like a little bit of myrrh, adding kind of like a dusty smokiness to this, and a little bit of powdery or maybe dusty vanilla as well. Man, I gotta say, the opening to this, like the first half roughly of the lifespan of this fragrance, impressive. This is very cool, especially with that fruity herbal Davana in the opening, with that leather, the smooth leather, and the very lightly smoky, dusty myrrh in the dry down. If those three notes were more prominent, this would be an absolute masterpiece as far as designer fragrance goes, in my opinion. But yeah, overarching all of that, we get a very heavy patchouli, which is going to add a very sweet, chocolatey, earthy characteristic to this. It's very prominent. And in the dry down, we definitely do get a substantial amount of vanilla. So if I had to summarize this, it would be a sweet, dark, slightly leathery, slightly dusty fragrance with green tinges that exist in the beginning, along with that fruitiness. Now it's sweet, it definitely is. It is very sweet, very obviously sweet. But at the same time, Boss has managed to prevent this from going totally cloying. It's quite interesting. The notes seem fairly balanced, although like I said, it is a very sweet fragrance. It's not what I find cloying. And my threshold for like sweet cloying fragrances is honestly kind of low. I'm not usually a fan of that style, but hey man, they've managed to make it work somehow in this, and I definitely approve. It's a great fragrance. So another factor here that might influence your decision to purchase this is by far the most complimented fragrance I have ever owned. People go absolutely berserk over this fragrance. It is, like I said, it is the epitome of mass appealing. So it's so well received, but at the same time, it's, you know, a little bit unique, let's say, for the designer world. So this one here right now, the 100 milliliter bottle can be found for like 75 euros at Douglas.es here in Europe, and in the United States. Macy's for the longest time was the only place you could get this, and 100 milliliter bottles like 140 US. Now at that price, I do not recommend it. Do not pay 140 US dollars for this. However, I will leave this link below. Joma Shop has a Black Friday sale coming up, and this will be on for $97.50 US. Again, that's for the 100 ml bottle. That's for the Black Friday sale that's coming up. Okay, so now let's get into Boss Bottled Elixir. I have a sample here. Actually, I have several samples. I've spent weeks testing both of these fragrances. Now I don't have the actual bottle to present to you guys. I don't know, I'm not gonna be able to test the atomizer or anything, but I've spent several weeks testing this. Very familiar with it. So what do I actually get in this fragrance? In the beginning, I get a lot of nutmeg and cardamom. In the mid, I get some cinnamon and a little bit of lavender. And in the dry down, labdanum, frankincense, and cedar. Okay, upon initial spray, spicy. We get a lot of that spicy, kind of earthy, sweet nutmeg, but it's met with a really piercingly sharp, warm, but at the same time cooling, almost minty cardamom. Spicy, cooling, very interesting opening here. In the mid, I get some lavender, just a touch of like aromatic, spicy, almost sweet lavender, and that's paired with some cinnamon. So a little bit sweet, a little bit earthy, a little bit spicy as well in the mid here. And this dries down with some smoky, leathery labdanum with some frankincense. It's resinous, it's a little bit dusty, it's a little bit smoky, and there's some woody cedar there in the background to give this like a solid woody base. So if I had to summarize this fragrance in a few words, it would be dark, spicy, aromatic, smoky, and a little bit leathery. Awesome, awesome fragrance here. So all in all, this is more grown up, more mature, spicier, and just a little bit more unique, I find, than the Boss Bottled Absolu. When I smell this, I am reminded of Dior Sauvage Elixir, but also of Chopard's Black Incense Malaki. So we get the aromatic spiciness from the Dior Sauvage Elixir, but I also do definitely detect like a spicy, leathery, resinous characteristic that I pick up as well in Black Incense Malaki by Chopard. So it's that kind of ever so slightly industrial scent that we get in Black Incense Malaki. I kind of picked that up in the bottom, and again, the top part of this fragrance is reminiscent to me of Dior Sauvage Elixir. I think it's an absolutely spectacular combination. I think this is quite a unique fragrance, at least coming from the Boss Bottled line. I know I just compared it to 2 other fragrances, but still, this one compared to the Boss Bottled Absolu, you know, I think this one here is just a little bit more unique, definitely more mature as well. So right now in the European Union, a 100 milliliter bottle of this goes for like 77 euros roughly on Douglas.es. And in the United States, Joma Shop, it's like 140 normally, but they are having a Black Friday sale coming up, and this price will go down to about 77 US dollars. So now that I've given both of these a full review, it's time to go over a couple of final thoughts before I give you guys my ultimate recommendation. Boss Bottled Absolu, performance on this, absolute monster. It lasts for over 24 hours on your skin with like a solid 2.5 hour, 3 hour projection at the beginning. However, I do get a lot of that fruity, vanillic sweetness that I get in other members of the Boss Bottled line. And, you know, for that reason, I don't know if it's the most unique one out there, but, you know, still a really solid offering from the house of Hugo Boss. Awesome performance, awesome compliment factor, and it smells just great. And then the Bottled Elixir here. This one here is going to be definitely more mature, more grown up, more aromatic. I just find it to be a little bit more unique than the Bottled Absolu. The performance on this one isn't quite as bombastic as Boss Bottled Absolu, but this one here still has very respectable performance. I'm talking about 8-9 hours of longevity with a solid projection for the first hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So like not the total bomb that Absolu is, but still quite respectable. In fact, great performance. Out of the two, I feel like the Absolu smells just a little bit more natural than the Elixir. I find the Elixir can have a little bit of a screechy synthetic quality towards the dry down, but you know, having said that, I have to say there's a clear winner. My favorite by far is the Elixir. I totally love this one, while this one here is kind of just more of a like for me. So yeah, which one would I recommend to you guys? Well, that's a tough one. I would recommend this one to younger guys who want to smell, you know, likable out in public, to go clubbing, for example, to really, you know, stand out, be noticed in a crowd. Yeah, Absolu is going to be the one for you, and you're going to get probably a ton of compliments, unless you're totally antisocial and mean. People love this one. Boss Bottled Elixir is the one that I would recommend to people who are like really into perfumery. This one has, I don't want to be corny, but I find this one has niche-like characteristics to it because of that spicy, leathery, almost, I don't know, industrial accord that exists, that lies underneath a beautiful, aromatic, spicy opening. I just think Elixir is much more interesting, has a lot more going on. I much prefer this scent profile to the Absolu. So yeah, I gotta say, both of these were pretty hyped in their day. I mean, this one is still extremely hyped. And I remember back when Elixir was released, there was a ton of hype surrounding this one. I gotta say, look, you know, to be honest, I wouldn't rush out and buy this Absolu. I don't think it really lives up to all the hype, to be completely honest with you guys. Great fragrance, but it's just, I don't think it's quite as good as a lot of YouTube reviewers are letting on. Now, that's one thing. However, if you were to ask a random group of people in public which one is their favorite, I have a feeling most people would say the Absolu. It's a more mass appealing scent profile compared to the Elixir. So I'd say the Elixir is probably going to appeal more to people who are like really into perfumery. Absolu for the vast majority of people. That's what I would say. But really, at the end of the day, scent is subjective, and as always, test before you buy and go with what you like. So anyway, you guys, that's been my side-by-side comparison of Boss Bottled Absolu and Boss Bottled Elixir. Arguably two of the biggest fragrance releases from the designer world in the past 5 years. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my conclusions? Do you like these fragrances yourselves? What do you have to say? Please, guys, leave some comments below this video. I hope you've enjoyed, guys, and until next time, keep it real.